as usual, we don't ever come into these races with like outcome goals around, hey, we want to get that second step on the podium, or we want to go under this time or anything like that. At the end of the day, it's just fun to go out there and mix it up and run around and swim around with you for 3 hours. And we had the opportunity to do that. So that's what we were both were looking forward to this whole weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And the weekend, Ötillö puts on a great event. This race is just like all the other events, super awesome, very accessible, clear information. The course was well marked,
Yep.
volunteers everywhere, water safety in the water. It was just everything, 8 bonus aid stations and places where it would be intuitive, where you might want to drink water on a hot day
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast.
I'm Chris, and this is episode 306 of the show. We have our final race report of the season for everyone this week. We just came back from Ötillö Austin for the 6th edition of that race. Spoiler alert, we won it.
That is true. It happened, and someone has to win these races, and this time it was our turn.
Yep, you have to race who shows up, and we showed up. So
absolutely. This race, we've always either ended up in second place or in fourth in the 6 times that we've done it. I keep forgetting that I actually didn't race last year, but I was at the race. But we've had a couple second place podium finishes and a couple fourth places.
Except for the first year. I think the first year, I don't think it was very competitive on our part. But it was always great to be back there. Great way to end the year. This is really kind of like the end of the year Low Tide Boys trip. And on the way down, Chipper, I remember mentioning to you, it's like, oh man, I think I've been on more sort of like adventures with you than I have with my wife. You think like 6 Austins, 4 Cascos, a Whistler in there, trips. 4 Sweden trips. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I think when I was thinking that, what I was really thinking about is like, man, look at us. Look at all the adventures we've gone on, all the places Swimrun has taken us, and where it's taken us on our friendship and our athletic journeys. And I think this race, in many ways, was like a nice little culmination of what was a pretty interesting sort of race year. I mean, you went to France and raced with someone. I was injured for Catalina. You raced with someone. I did Whistler with Annie. We did a triple at Bellingham. I raced with Emily at Swimrun Cape Cod, which was super fun. So just a bunch of different types of experiences. But then to come together as Team Low Tide Boys, especially after having done Ötillö, Colorado last month, which in many ways, like that was a super hard race. You can listen to that show if you want to hear the carnage that race delivered for everyone. But I thought like all year going into our races, I thought we'd just been like, dare I say, we're finally figuring this out. It seems like our plans were really good. Anyway, we'll get into it. But Chipper, let's start with getting to Austin.
Getting to Austin. So, there is a government shutdown that's currently happening now. And I think earlier in the week, the FAA announced they're grounding 10% of all flights, especially from major hubs. And we're flying out of SFO into Austin, which is another major hub, certainly adding a little bit to the anxiety of the traveling out there. Luckily, our flights were not impacted. We did have a delay, but overall, I think our goal, Chris, is like, let's get to the airport, let's get on the plane and wheels up, and then we can kind of like take a breath of relief. We have been going out to Austin. It is a 2-hour time shift for us. And I kind of forgot 2 hours and a 3-hour, a 3-hour flight. It ends up kind of being almost the whole day by the time you get settled to your hotel and stuff. So I do like that we go out on Fridays, and it also allows us to kind of, enjoy hanging out with each other. And, we partnered up with Phil again, formerly of the Swimrun Monks, for the Swimrun Circus, as we've been affectionately calling it. But I mean, we made it to Austin, drove out to Pace Bend Park, got some tacos, got some Topo Chicos, just kind of kicked it off like you got to fuel the body, and definitely trying to take it a little bit easier, kicking the legs up and not like touristing around Austin and then checking out all the cool sites, which there certainly is a lot.
And I feel like we've been to Austin, so I mean, obviously 6 years in a row now. It's like we've kind of done that stuff. It's more about just like, let's get our mind right. Let's enjoy a cool shakeout on Saturday, see everyone. Austin always delivers. It's such a beginner-friendly race, so there's tons of new people coming into the sport. We got a ton of love from folks out on the course. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I think going into this race, I had literally just done the New York City Marathon the week before. My legs
Hmm.
really hadn't really come back until maybe Saturday morning, if I'm being
Yeah.
like totally honest. Like I didn't run all week. I went on some long walks and rode the bike a little bit, went swimming, but
Yep.
was basically trying to get back, get the legs back for this race, which, spoiler alert, obviously everything worked out fine.
Yeah.
But I was certainly mindful and a little concerned about what I was going to be able to really put out there. But Chipper, as ever, you were like super gracious and you're just like, it's just going to be what it is. Again, it helps that this
Yeah.
race is so familiar to us. But even
Yeah.
though it was familiar, I think it really almost felt like a race of first impression, at least on
Absolutely.
the swims, because the water level was so ridiculously high.
In
Hadn't been
comparison
that
to
high since
previous
like the
seasons.
first
Yeah.
year. So every year the race was a little bit different, more scrambling, getting out of the water, more kind of like bushwhacking. Now it was more like, the entrance and exits were much more
Right there.
manageable, frankly.
Yeah. And so, it was like the tale of sort of two different training cycles. Chris literally coming off, I think, most coaches would probably not advise jumping into another 3 to 3.5 hour, tempo effort a week after toasting your legs for 3.5 hours in New York City. And I'm on sort of kind of peaking up to my marathon build for my marathon, which is in December. So kind of the whole day, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling kind of good. This is nice. Which
Well,
for me personally is a little bit of a different situation that I think Austin for us usually had kind of been the bookend on the racing season as a whole. We're doing trail and other running stuff as well, but usually I feel like I kind of come into Austin like, oh, maybe I started my holiday situation a little bit earlier, coming in not as fit as I had been previously in the season. This year, I felt coming in, certainly have had a really good confidence building workouts and feeling probably one of the most fit that I have been for this race specifically and, for early November.
sure. So when I was giving my wife, my lovely, beautiful wife, Susan, her private
She
race
is
report
lovely.
last night, I was, I definitely told her, I was like, you know what? I like Chipper in marathon build mode for Austin because you certainly were as spry and I would say as kind of like locked in. Because to your point, I was like, as soon as this race is over, I'm done for the year. But
Yeah,
you're like, hey, this is just a long day prepping me for what I'm going to be doing in a month from now at CIM. So it was interesting to kind of see you. It's almost like the roles were reversed. I usually have, I'm
yep,
full of piss and vinegar for Austin because it's the last race of the year. This time I was like, as soon as this race is over, I'm essentially done. Meanwhile, you still have work to do. So it was interesting how that dynamic played out where when we were talking about our strategy going for the race, it was like, hey, I'm obviously going to give you everything I have. We made some tactical
as
decisions
usual.
around who was going to lead the swims, who were going to lead the first swim. And basically you were going to do more of the lion's share of the swimming just because I hadn't had time to really do as much swimming, given my sort of life schedule lately. But the fitness was certainly there. And, the carryover fitness, fitness was there for you. And the carryover
Yeah,
fitness, I was just kind of like hoping that it was going to express itself. And certainly we mentioned this before, Chipper, so many times. Like, yeah, I did a huge effort on concrete, on asphalt a week ago. And this was around what, 14-ish, 50, 13-ish miles of
yeah.
running, something like that. It didn't feel like I ran a half marathon a week after running a marathon. There was enough breaks in between. And certainly my quads were a little bit sore towards the end. And I was definitely feeling the latent fatigue from that. But it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah. And, going back to what you said earlier, when we went into the race, oh, hey, I'm full. Oh, I'm peaking. I was working with Coach Liz and she's like, hey, this is just going to be, instead of having a 16-mile, 18-mile tempo run, the race, you're going to kind of do that. So my sort of taper week wasn't as tapery as they have been before, but we were aligned from our goals. Like what we always say, it's like, hey, we could have came out there. I could be like, Chris, we're going to charge it. I'm like, really, I want to give this a good effort and just drag you around on like potentially bashed up legs. Like I wouldn't have fun with that. You weren't going to have fun with that. Is very
Yeah.
much kind of let's see how it turns out. And, checking in kind of during the week, how the legs feeling, kind of seeing how it's going, definitely trying to give you your space and not trying to put too much kind of pressure on anything. But as usual, we don't ever come into these races with like outcome goals around, hey, we want to get that second step on the podium or we want to go under this time or anything like that. at the end of the day, it's just fun to go out there and mix it up and run around and swim around with you for 3 hours. And we had the opportunity to do that. So that's what we were both were looking forward to this whole weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And the weekend, Ötillö puts on a great event. This race is just like all the other events, super awesome, very accessible, clear information. The course was well marked, volunteers everywhere, water safety in the water. It was just everything, 8 bonus aid stations and places where it would be intuitive, where you might want to drink water on a hot day kind of thing. The water temps were really, really warm. The hyperthermia was not in the cards, unless you're doing something like really weird or something. But Saturday, there was Team Envol and Marcus Barton and crew put on their usual clinic. And we showed up to that. Decent amount of people. It was maybe like, I don't know, 50 people, 40 people, something like that. We didn't do the clinic part. We just kind of ran down to the water to check it out. And then we did our own run, which certainly was my first run since the marathon. And that was fun. We saw Lars out there. And Packet Pickup was right after. We have to give one particular shout out to Mr. John, who thanked us. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that he made this little laminated thing for Chipper and me that says, "Thank you, Chipper and Chris, for hooking me on Swimrun." And we're dressed.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. So, John, thank you so much.
That's not our actual bodies. We're not six-packed Aquaman ripped Jason Momoa status.
Don't tell people.
Sorry. I'll edit that out.
But it was so nice, everyone coming up to us. And John, really appreciate you taking the time to make these placards for us. So they'll be displayed in our respective studios. But it's always great to see the community. And, we always joke that the Swimrun Circus comes to town, and it came to town.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that shakeout run, it was actually quite warm. It was noon, 1 o'clock-ish. And we just did we kind of did the first run one down to the water. We didn't make it all the way down there, but if you've done Austin, there's a big road that kind of goes down and leads into, testing out the shoes. How, Chris, how are the legs actually feeling now that we're kind of putting a little bit of run into there? Just reminding ourselves of kind of the rolling hilly nature or the loose rocks, just kind of reorienting ourselves there. I was springing a leak. I was leaking sweat. That was really quite warm. Good thing we had our PFH 1500 ready to go as usual and kind of staying up on that. But yeah, and I think this was probably the most monk-like we have been the day before the race. I think we were in bed, under the covers in bed at 8:15 p.m. the night before the race, had the paddles marked up, had our dinner, had everything laid out, ready to go. I think we were just kind of hey, we're going to get to it, and we want to make sure that we're rested up for what's going to be a fun time tomorrow.
And I think it's probably helpful for folks listening who maybe haven't done a swim run or thinking about doing a swim run. It's conditions were changing. So Saturday was super warm, as Chipper was saying. Sunday was supposed to be colder, maybe with wind coming in. We were prepared. I actually wore arm sleeves on our little warm-up run Sunday morning before the race. Took those things promptly off and stashed them back in my bag. Those things were not going to be necessary. But yeah, I was just making sure we had sort of the optionality to make good decisions. And like Chipper mentioned, decent night of sleep. No, it was kind of a non-issue. Talked about a race, talked about our strategy. Our fueling strategy going in was basically going to be what it always is, which Chipper was going to try to hit 90 grams of carbs per hour. I was also trying to do that. I was going to deploy my caffeine gel strategically. For this race, what I did different, usually I don't take a caffeine gel 15 minutes before the start. I used to take a regular gel and then take a caffeine gel at some strategic point down the road. For this one, I did take a caffeine gel just because I wanted to make sure, I wasn't sure where my fatigue levels were going to be once I was doing something at effort. And while I thought I was good for it, you never know. So I was just kind of a little bit of an insurance policy.
Get the help you can get.
I ended up taking 3 caffeine gels, and because it's a home race and PF was out there, every aid station had a bonus gel. Chipper was, force feeding me gels, all this stuff. We're making sure we're on top of that stuff. And then the hydration was drink water at every aid station. I think we ended up skipping one towards the end just because we were both moving well. I was just let's get to the end of this thing, and then filled up our flasks on the long run. Chipper, I know you were you really nailed your fueling.
Smashing the carbs. And yeah, similarly to, the night before, the process that we have is hey, as I'm marking down on my paddles, that's something that I usually kind of manage for the team. It's okay, Chris, run one, this is Chris's 6th time doing it. This is my 5th time. it very much, rolls out of your head when you're on there. Okay, I remember what this is. And like almost from memory, we're able to kind of call out what's happening. But again, with the higher water levels, we knew it was going to be a little bit different. More swimming, more kind of complete swimmings and less scrambly out. So, hey, here's the aid station. I'm going to have water here. I'm going to take a gel here. We were all just communicating this and discussing it as I'm writing it out and just talking through it with Chris. But we kind of identified, and a big lesson that we both have taken from our Swimrun experiences with different partners over the course of this year is Chris leading some swims actually is really beneficial to help my heart rate recover and kind of get some recovery. So, I know you mentioned, obviously you're not having the swim volume that you would want to have, but you're still good for it. As much as you played up on the podcast.
If it was needed, I was certainly here for it. And, a little bit of foreshadowing when we do our leg by leg breakdown, the swim that I let out, once again, I felt like I needed to impress Chipper a little bit. And dare I say that I did.
Hey, I'll take it. You did.
And I think, you alluded to it earlier, Chipper, this idea of like, sort of like our hierarchy of goals, right? Our first goal is vibe goal. Let's have a good time. Let's not hate each other at the end of this thing. Let's work together. Again, we've done so many of these that goal is pretty much like the perma goal. For me, the goal this year has always been like, I'm also not trying to be out there all day. I know I've been kind of like underfit and slightly injured all season, but I'm also not trying to spend any more time than I need to on this course if I can help it. And then the rest was like very tactical goals. Like, all right, okay, let's take it easy on that first swim. Let's build into it. Let's make some decisions around who's going to lead swims later in the race. Let's adjust pace as needed, as I'm feeling. I know I was trying to be really communicative at some point. I think like my left IT was bugging me, which was causing some like left knee pain. It wasn't hampering, but I kind of knew what it was. So I didn't think I was causing any sort of like injury or anything. So we just kind of kept going. It was really helpful to have swims to break it up and kind of get some of that out. Recovery. I was literally like flexing my knee during the swims, just kind of like sticking my leg out just to kind of put some, get some flex in there. Yeah. And then in terms of the outcome goal, it was really like, let's just do the best we can. No expectations. Certainly didn't have an expectation to be the first team to finish. Shout out to Marcus Barton, the most experienced swim runner in America. He was the charity chaser. So he started 20 minutes after the World Series distance went off. And a secret goal, well, I guess not that secret. So we talked about it. It's like, we really don't want Marcus to catch us. We mentioned this to him as well, and he was laughing about it, but because he was trying to catch us, and we're like, we really don't want that to happen. So it was super funny. That was like a little bit extra motivation. So kudos to the charity.
It was both unspoken goals, but Marcus texting us after, hey, great to see you guys. Yeah. He goes, oh, I was really trying to catch you. We're like, hey, we were really trying to have you not catch us. So we both had self-serving goals, which I think overall helped propel both of us forward in a better way.
Sure. Yeah, I was definitely looking over my shoulder, maybe a little bit more than I would have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's kind of jump into race day there. Our gear setup, I mean, I feel like totally dialed on the gear stuff. We both rocked the Arc Vig. I know you mentioned, Chris, I brought my arm warmers as well, just because who knows, it's good to have them. But in Texas, even especially the water temps, I would probably say were mid to upper 70s. It was almost too warm, honestly.
Very pleasant. Very pleasant.
It was bath water-esque, or at least teetering on that edge. The Vig was great, kangaroo top. In our little shakeout run before, there was kind of some branches and stuff. We kind of got scratched up legs. So I was like, hey, I'm glad we brought the tall compression CEP socks that we have been wearing out. Keel Plus, Rank Paddle, Low Tide Boys Special Edition,
of course,
pretty much. Now, Chris, your shoes, your 240s, your Adidas.
Yeah. So I wore the race shoes I've been wearing all year. If you see me out there, one's orange, one's black. The sole's also like, it's a whole thing.
It's a thing.
The shoes basically don't last more than 250 miles for me before the cushion kind of gives up. I remember mentioning you, Chipper, during the race. I'm like, yeah, this is the last hurrah. So I wore them all year. They were sort of sacrificed at the end of the year to make more space for, for empty champagne bottle that we're bringing back to put in a position of
somewhere in the studio.
Somewhere in the studio.
I wore the Adidas, the Carbon, Terex, whatever. They're a
Gravix Speed Ultra.
Yeah. So I also acquired a new pair of those. They were on steep sale, but I've been using the pair that I've been using all season for Folsom, Colorado, and now Austin. I think in retrospect, Chris, maybe having a fresh pair of shoes, especially on the tired legs,
Yep.
maybe could have been a good call. But I
Absolutely.
also respect going back with lighter luggage.
Yeah, I also came back with your luggage.
Yeah, that's true.
So hey, again, this is good. You guys want some like insider good swim run teammate? Chipper is in Las Vegas right
Vegas.
now for a work conference. I was coming home. I'm like, give me your pull buoy, dude. I'll take care of that thing like my third child. Make sure it gets home safely and it's sitting right next to me.
Yes. And I was like, hey, would you mind taking my wet, stinking wetsuit, my
Of
socks,
course.
and my first round of dirty laundry back with you and just throw it on my porch when you get home?
No,
So
no
no
worries.
problem there, which much appreciated. So going into run one is about a 1.5 mile run, and it is downhill. Everyone's full of energy, full of piss and vinegar, and like it just gets quick. So we've always done this, and I feel like this is our golden rule for run one specifically, is just kind of, we say, keep it in your pants. You're not going to win the race on the first run, but you certainly can burn a match that you don't really need to be burning early. Ötillö, they started the World Series, and then 15 minutes after, they started the sprint and experience distance, which I really liked. So I think that's a good thing to move forward, because it does help that first swim, run to swim transition be a little bit less chaotic. It's already kind of chaotic there, but yeah, so that first run just kind of took it easy. And Chris, how were the legs on that first run? I think we were doing upper sevens, kind of 8-minute mile, which is still a little bit faster than we probably should have been going, but overall,
Yeah, I mean,
we
it
were really trying to
felt,
manage it.
yeah, the first run was fine. I think usually you're the one telling me it's like, hey, if you go faster than 7:30 pace on this thing, I'm going to trip you with this tether.
No,
Yeah,
that was not the
that
case this
wasn't an
year.
issue today. There wasn't an issue on Sunday. But yeah, certainly, yeah, we ran eights. I think for this race in particular, doing the warm up run was helpful just to kind of get some like, a heat cycle through the legs a little bit before
Yep.
the race started, and also helped me realize I didn't need arm warmers. So I think a race
That
like
was
this,
good.
it's shortish. I know a lot of people, it's like, hey, I'm going to be out there all day. I'm going to save the warm up for the warm up run. Sometimes it's better just to, even if it's just a mile or half a mile, just to kind of do a systems check. Maybe you'll get a little chafy, you got to apply something somewhere or whatever. So we highly recommend that. And then we did that first gel 15 minutes before. We topped off on a PFH before the race. So we were ready to go. Again, that first
Yep.
run, race went off, national anthem. The voice of Swimrun was there, Mark Fananger. Quick side note, Mark and Lois Fananger are just gems
Lovely
of human
people.
being. The voice of Swimrun, the chef of Swimrun. I'm always so happy to see them. They're just
Yep.
amazing, amazing folks. So if you ever see them at a race, shake their hand and give them kudos, because they're just the greatest. So it was always great to see them. So,
Back to the race.
so yeah, that first run, again, you kind of like do some dirt, get on the road, and then go down this hill to the first swim. And we were moving well. We started getting our stuff on that run down. So we started off pretty light, no hand paddles on, nothing like that. Everything was kind of tucked away.
No cap
And
either.
no cap.
And that was something that, yeah, during that shakeout run, even just a half mile, little 5-7 minute run, already getting some sweat. And I'm like, man, if I have a cap on, I'm going to be overheating by the time we get down there. 90% of people had caps on. So I was really happy that we didn't. And one more thing that we really wanted to do, especially in previous years at this race, with the water level being so recessed, there was a lot of mud and sticks, and like really hard to make your transitions in and out of the water be real snappy and pretty. But we know at the higher water, this is an area that we can really lean into and be real snappy and be clean and not sloppy on the transition. So as we go down, okay, and I think something we've been doing a little bit, this could be a little bit of a pro tip around, hey, when someone's trying to, get their shit zipped up, get their paddles on and their cap, like it kind of slows the pace down a little bit. So alternating, like I would just yell back like, hey, Chris, like get ready type of thing, or I'm going to get ready. And then that way you're both not trying to figure it out at the same time. You can kind of alternate. I would give a solid A on our transitions the entire day, especially that first one.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it during the race. Like we're usually good for one dud transition where it's just like, I forgot how to do this thing.
Oh, I've never Swimrun before.
But this one for sure, every entrance and exit, and my back was doing well. So that was, the first exit of the first swim, which we'll get to. Like that's usually the transitioning out where my back might get smoky. Everything was fine, which is great. But yeah, just like the pro tip there is if you want to transition snappy, you have to be thinking about your transition well before you get to the water. So you want to have
Yeah.
your goggles kind of lined up. You want to have your pull buoy sort of released so you can put it between your legs. And then lastly, get your paddles, obviously make sure you're zipped up or do whatever you need to do. But the more that you can have that sort of be premeditated as you're going through, the quicker you can be. So yeah, the first swim we go in and there's a lot of people there. Chipper's like, you ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. And we just like literally went. We probably passed a handful of teams and solo people just transitioning in. That first swim was pretty chaotic. So Chipper, I'll take this one since I was the one who like experienced it the most annoyingly. So a lot of folks around. It felt like a triathlon swim. This was confirmed by our friends Jacob and Coach Liz that were racing. Another side note, Liz, they just had a baby like 6 months ago and they won the mixed division. It's just impressive.
Awesome. Great stuff.
Mom power for sure. Liz,
Legend.
you're a beast. Jacob, you're also a beast. Okay, so lots of beasts.
That
kid,
yeah.
Emma's gonna be a beast. It's just in the DNA.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to stuff. So that first swim was pretty chaotic. Lots of folks around. It really felt like a triathlon swim. I was protecting the tether. There was people on both sides. At one point, there was this one guy on the right who kept kind of like jamming me to one point where I literally like pushed him off, and he kept just veering left, and it was just kind of annoying. At some point, he knocked my paddle off. So I had to stop, and I think I yelled pretty loud expletive, both to get Chipper's attention, but also because I was really frustrated because I was like, what's this guy doing? There was another part in that swim where Chipper tried to shoot a gap because like two solo people were kind of converging. And I think he thought I honestly feel like you thought you were doing what you needed to do, but that made my life incredibly difficult because I'm trying to protect the tether. And pro tip, if you're the person on the back, it's your responsibility to protect the tether. You can't have people crossing over. You can't have people with other tethers getting in there. That's going to take up a whole bunch of time. The last thing you want to do is have to stop in the middle of the swim to like untangle knots and things like that. So I was being very, at one point I was very aggressively just doing like short swing, short arm strokes just to kind of like stay on top of everything. And at one point, this guy who kept jamming us on the right, he literally just takes like a hard left, crosses in between Chipper and me, goes over the tether, and I'm just fuck. I think Chipper sensed how upset I was. I was certainly upset. Chipper's like, I got to do something to like help Chris cool off, and I was like, I got to do something to help me cool off. But you ended up basically changing your line and kind of getting away from the riffraff. Not that it's riffraff, but just away from the crowds because it was very, very chaotic, and it was just like I felt like we couldn't really get into a good groove because it was so much of just like people management. And again, I'm literally mid-stroke, like pushing someone physically away from me so they don't like cross my tether. That doesn't make for good swim pace. But I apologize if everyone heard me drop F-bombs. It wasn't my proudest moment. But I do think it's like, it was a reminder. It's like, I'm still trying to race this thing and I don't want it to be annoying. But yeah, that first swim was really the only one. I knew it too. It's like, hey, once we're through this, we'll be in no man's land as we usually are. It'll start kind of thinning out, so to speak. And I think it certainly helped. So you mentioned earlier, Chipper, the like starting the sprinting experience a little bit later just makes it less chaotic for that first swim.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of racing incidents there. Obviously nothing nefarious. Like this guy wasn't trying to take us out, and, but it's just like when there's, 15 people all going in the same direction there. And I remember this gap, like these two people, it was closing in. I'm like, I'm going to get pinched and put shot out the back. Let me make a move. I can make this gap. And then about halfway as I was making it through, I'm like, well, Chris is going to have some trouble making it through.
Because they basically closed in on you like by your feet. And then I was like,
Yeah, and I was like, oh man, that was not good. So yeah, poor form on sort of leading that swim out. I also did the thing that I've tried not to do. Usually I charge into these swims and really hit it pretty hard to start. And I didn't do that again, similar to the strategy that we had at Colorado, because I felt like it did work out. Our swim fitness isn't at Ötillö levels, but overall, once we got on that inside line, it was much better. And I was actually surprised there wasn't as much branches and, things coming up from the depths of the Colorado River at us. But yeah, getting out on that second run, there was a pack of folks, and I think I saw 2 or 3 other kind of men's teams there. And obviously we never go into these races like, oh, where are we seated? Where are we at here and there? Because we don't know. There could always be, we always assume there's a team going way off the front fast and, whatever. So this isn't even in our mind at all. I think that second run was pretty uneventful there back across there. Started the fueling right away, stopped to get some water, but just kind of really carrying on to the next, that second swim, which is about, another 800, 900 yards of a swim, just parallel to the thing. And I started taking as close a line as I could to the shore. Again, you just have to make it to the next point. There's no like swim out to this buoy and then there's no course. So people swim very far out. I'm just taking the shortest line that I can to save us, an extra 25 yards. It seems to make sense, but
yeah. And the fueling started right away. So basically after that first swim, I immediately took a gel because it was about 24 minutes into the race or something by the time we were out there. So was very much on top of that. And I knew, Chipper, you were going to be on top of it. So you were like my
drinking buddy.
My fueling buddy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like my fueling mentor for the race. It's like, oh, Chipper's taking some, I'm gonna take some. We were certainly really good. We had our plan of what we're gonna do at the aid station. So we had that first station. I'd just taken a gel, took another gel because it's a plan to take gels at aid stations. Drank some water and then crossed to the other side, which kind of took us to the second longest swim of the day. And that one, on the way over, we decided it's like, hey, I'll lead us out. And then similar to what we did in Colorado for that, that crazy 2,000-yard swim, I was like, I'll just go. And whenever you feel like you want to take over, that's fine. But in my mind, so I went into that swim being like, I'm just pretending like I'm leading this whole thing. And I'm just going to charge until Chipper sees something. We didn't really see any teams. Once we're out on the water, which was actually kind of choppy, little bit, the wind was starting to pick up, the conditions were changing, which is always fun, where it's like started sunny, then it's like a little bit cloudy and like there's things happening. It just makes it more dynamic racing. And hey, the harder the water, I think that's an advantage to us because we kind of like, those are the experiences we're trying to seek out, not some like, the glass water is fun too. But like for this one, it felt good to just have to do a little bit of work. Certainly was work. So we go down this boat ramp, and in years past, you would run down the boat ramp and then go past the boat ramp and then into the mud and then start. So this one was like the run into the water wasn't that bad because the water level was so high. So we turn that corner, we go left, we're essentially going into the wind. I see somebody, I see a carrot, I see a target, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get to that guy. And I think Chipper, I think you saw him too. And you're like, I'm going to let Chris just like, get this kill.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I had been off on the front, kind of leading the runs, fresher legs there, obviously using the signals from the tether as we're tethered the whole race. I'm like, hey, how taut is this thing getting? Is Chris telling me his legs are trash? Like, what's going on? Fueling. So everything's kind of going well, but me being off the front is not conducive to me having a zone 2 heart rate. It's more conducive to like a tempo effort for me. So that was like, I think we've really figured out kind of the timing on some of these longer swims, because I got a solid another 10-minute break. But as I was swimming in the back, I took a leak as well, which I usually don't get to do. And then, I did see that carrot out there. I'm like, oh, Chris is like reeling this guy in. I'll just let him take this guy and then we'll go. So he was going, we came up on this solo person, Chris passed him. And, I kind of almost felt bad for this guy because, if that was me out there, I'd be like, ooh, let me grab these feet and get a little bit of a toe. But as soon as Chris passed him, we did our like tap on the foot thing. I just came around and I put a couple, 15 solid strokes in. And, I think we probably made our way past. I don't know if they were able to get a toe or not. Yeah. So that finished off that swim. And these are all kind of into coves. And again, like Chris was saying, previous years, you would be doing 20 feet vertical up the side of a cliff, rock climbing to get out of these. This one was, maybe 10 feet, maybe 6 feet, getting out. Hey, I'm getting out. Let me lend a hand to Chris. Does he need me to pull him up? Is there anyone to, push up ahead? Keeping the transitions snappy, not lingering, and just kind of getting out and getting going on the runs. There's still a few teams around us as well, but that long swim took us to where you traverse across the park and do the out and back. It's like a 5K, 3.2 mile run there. which is
Oh, I should say, so on the crossover to that long swim, that's when I timed my second caffeine gel
ooh,
so that it would kick in basically 20 minutes. So I try to time it like at that aid station when we're crossing over of like, oh yeah, 2 miles before this thing kind of kicks in. So it's certainly, I'd certainly felt like a,
a lift.
like a little bit of a lift, had more energy that kind of felt like it kicked in during that swim. And that kind of carried me over to when I was going to take it again, which was fast forward to the last aid station before we crossed
Mhm.
the peninsula back to the final swim. So yeah, so we get on that run. There's an aid station. We're still feeling well. This is out and back where it's really the first chance to kind of see where everyone's at. If we're moving well, maybe we'll see the first place kind of like solo racers, and we
Yep.
didn't. Three
They were
people were
already
kind of, we did see like the fourth and fifth place, of which one was Phil Sankoff, who's our buddy from the Swimrun Monks, California Swimrun crew. Saw him, like dapped him up, gave him a high five. He told us that he lost his paddles, but he went back and got him. I was like, oh my God, dude, don't lose the
proof.
Franks, baby. Can't be losing
Yeah.
the Franks. And we were moving, I think, pretty well. That's when sort of my knee started acting up a little bit. I communicated that. We checked
Yep.
in on pace. I think for this one, I didn't do a lot of leading the runs. I think I led one run section. And at one point you were like, it's like, I think you told me to settle down or something. I was like, you know what? Why don't you just keep leading? Because I thought you were setting the pace really well and our communication was well. So we go all the way down to the little out and back. We fill our flasks and we were carrying full flasks on the rest of that run to just kind of top off. It's like halfway through the race. You start working your way back is a good time to just make sure that you're not depleted with your hydration. So they had, I think it was like PFH 1000. So I just filled
Yep.
my bottle with that. You had pre-filled yours with 1500 and I think you filled yours with water. And then we're
Yep.
just like, out
Bonus
of there.
gel, rep a bonus gel. I mean, yeah, our aid stations were really crisp, transitions really crisp. It was just like everything was tight. Everything was tight and tidy. And then, yeah, as we came back, I mean, not 30 seconds, 45 seconds, maybe a minute after, we saw 3 or 4 other men's teams coming at us. So, we passed them there and it was folks that we had kind of been mixing it up with earlier. And then I kind of this is the first time in my head, I'm like, oh, or like, what's going on here? Are we like kind of one of the first potentially in the front of kind of the men's race here?
Yeah, so we thought that Liz and Jacob for sure were ahead of us.
Or they
And
were,
maybe,
yeah.
and maybe Kayla and Jen, because they might have just passed us in the water because they're like super fast pro triathlete type folks. But yeah, Team Batman's parents, Liz and Jacob apparently took like missed a turn, or like a bunch of people missed a turn. So like a pack of people kind of went off, which is again, run your own race. Just because
Heads
15
up
people are
racing.
going one way, make sure you're going the right way. So we ended up kind of passing them because they were off on some other part of the course. And it was
Yeah.
just enough of a gap where they couldn't make it up. So yeah, same for you, Chipper. That's when I was like, okay, like where actually are we in this race? And that's where, again, it's not that it's important, but it's just helpful information. Like we're competitive, we want to do well,
Yeah.
So it's like just kind of being honest with that. It's like, hey, we have an opportunity to put down something spicy. Like I'm prepared. I'm prepared to go to that length. I was certainly prepared to go super dark to not let Marcus pass us.
Okay.
Let me tell you that much.
Yeah, you're going to dig deep for that one. And that was a little bit of a carrot for me, kind of being more out in the front. Again, this is where I was feeling like, hey, I'm feeling fitter than I normally am at this time during this race, that I'm feeling good. And the pace that I was going, I didn't hear any complaints from you in the back other than, kind of just checking in. So I was like, let's keep on it, because I felt confident in our swims and our transitions that we could keep the gap that we had. But the runs, I think, was maybe where we were giving away 10, 15 seconds a mile potentially, or whatever the pace was. But I'm like, we kind of got to keep on it. We can't. So that was kind of helpful for me. And I was feeling good as well.
Yeah.
That helps.
And I remember thinking, I was like, that's the first point. I like Chipper during his last month of a marathon build. Like this is my favorite Chipper, on runs, right? And I remember, so around that time, we kept kind of mixing it up with these 2 or 3 like solo people who we would essentially pass in the water, and then they would pass us on the runs. And it was like, I thought we were doing that really smart. Like we didn't take the bait to be like, oh, let's just like speed up. So like they're not in our category. We ended up chopping it up with one dude for a couple of the runs because we're running down to, I think, like the
cliff
swim
jump,
before the cliff jump, and going down the boat ramp, be like, hey man, love the show, like all this stuff. Like it was just a thrill. I was like, oh man, really appreciate it. It's like a second swim run or something. And I was like, yeah, man, just jump on our feet, like go with us. And then basically like we'd pass him in the water. He'd pass us on the run, pass the water. A couple of times he was going the wrong way. We're like, dude, go over here.
Over here. He's like, oh, thanks. And, similar to Colorado, and again, very, hey, maybe we're finally figuring out how to race properly.
Mature. It was mature.
It was like, hey, don't let the solo people be a carrot for us. Hey, we might be in the front of the men's category race. Stick to our plan. Stick to our race. Don't go trying to drop some like 7:30 pace when you don't got it. Stick to the plan. Just keep going ahead. What happens will happens. Worry about yourself. And that's exactly what we executed on. Whether we verbally communicated that or not, we both were on that same page, just because that's how we kind of try to do things. So yeah, made it back across the water there, still kind of had that gap. And then again, it's like getting in. I took the rest of the swims from there on out, because the one
I
you
offered,
did lead,
in my defense.
Yeah, you definitely did. We'll check in and see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, we continued to move well, have good swims. We got out of the swim that takes you to like a half mile or, 0.6 mile run where the cliff jump is. We bypassed the cliff jump this year and ran down and jumped in and put in a good effort across, and kind of getting out from there. That's when I started like kind of the over the shoulder number, like, okay, what's kind of going on here? Are we getting ran down? And that is the, second to last run that is the most dizzying. They take you by the race finish, sort of. You can hear the voice of Swimrun, Mark Sananger, chatting it up. You're just in the woods, like feels like you're running in circles. It's really kind of a little bit of a mind fuck a little bit on that one, but it is a good run, very runnable for us. So we were able to kind of really keep that pace up, busted out my flask, water, making sure the gels were there. Got to keep gas in the tank, even though, maybe there's 30 minutes of racing left. Maybe there's 45 minutes of racing. Who cares? Just keep it up. Keep it going.
Yeah. And also it helps with the recovery. So you shouldn't be like, oh, I only got 45 minutes left. It's like, no, you got the rest of the day. Do you want to be like trash the rest of the day, or just like survive the last 40 minutes of your race? So at that aid station before the last long run to the final swim, I took my last caffeine gel, took some water, and we just went. And in there, we started catching some of the sprint people. And we saw these two ladies who recognized us, and they're like, oh, we met you at Casco like 2 years ago. It was always super great. The solo guy runs up and he was like, oh, I wish someone would yell my name during a race. I'm like, oh, easy, dude. Just start a super niche podcast. And Chipper's like, yeah, and do it for 5 years. But yeah, super funny.
Always on the course, like the love and just the cheers and go boys and stuff is like always, it buoys us, to use a swim run pun there. And I think that run headed back to that final swim was when I finally was like, Chris, how are the legs feeling? Just to kind of see, hey, if something happened that we kind of had to get a little bit spicy with it and they'll fuck around and see what's going on with another team. Yeah. What was available to me from your leg perspective? And you just went,
I was like, let's just keep going.
Fair enough.
I mean, I was certainly feeling it by that point. Like my left quad was a little sore. Like I mentioned, my left knee, my right calf, so it was just like the usual kind of niggles you'd get. To your point, Chipper, I think that would have been mitigated a little bit if I would have worn like, kind of like slightly, mostly worn out shoes to just put one more race in them. Yeah, so we finished sort of going through the woods, get on the road that takes us back to Camp Tex Lake to the last swim. That's where we saw John Wyrock again. And he was like, hey, I'm like, hey, dude, like you're almost there. And he's like, did Marcus pass you guys? We're like, no. He's like, well, if I see him, I'll try to stop him. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, don't injure him. It's like, just delay him slightly if you can. Anything will help. Yeah, so we got to that last swim. And honestly, that's one too where it was like, damn, like the water is so high, because in years past, like you couldn't even, there was like a little boat, like a dock that you would jump off of. Like that dock was like on dirt.
No water was there.
You'd hit on the side before you could get in the water. So we saw a bunch of folks on that, like Kate that was doing the short course. She was out there. And yeah, we got into that last swim. And again, I'd offered to lead, and the second Chipper was like, oh, I got him. I'm like, all right, sweet. Go for it, Buck. Oh, you baby.
Yeah, 1,400 meters. And it was like, hey, after this race, swimming is not a concern, just going to send it. I was really feeling good on that run. And again, you kind of go up this hill, and usually I think, there's been races where we've had to take a walk break up that thing because I've been kind of blew a gasket or whatever. But this year I was like charging up it, and I was feeling pretty determined that I wasn't going to let anyone get by us, especially with that swim coming up where I felt like the most like that would have been our time to shine. So yeah, jumped in the water off the dock and just kind of sent it a little bit too aggressively, actually.
Here's something really funny that happened. So again, a little bit of a pro tip: just because you're in the back doesn't mean you gotta like, zone off and like read a novel or something. Like, you still got to pay attention. Maybe you don't need to have like, 5 out of 5 attention. You should have at least 3. I'm sighting too, and Chipper is basically heading straight towards a rock. I'm like, yo, where are you going? Where are you going? And you like look up and like, oh shit. And you kind of like, oh, okay. So he was going to do like a Titanic. He was about to beach himself or something. Yeah. So we course corrected, but that was the only thing. And I know where it's coming from. Just like head down, just like getting the strokes in. And I was like, yo.
Yeah. I have some weird, maybe my strokes are uneven because I really veered. And it was exactly that. I'm like, okay. And there was the sprint experience people were there, and it was kind of fun carrots. It's like, oh, there's someone. Let me try to get them. Oh, there's another. Let me try to get. So I enjoy that sort of Seabiscuit stuff as well. And it was like, let me put 5 hard strokes in. And I look up and I'm like, I'm literally going to ram my head into a rock. We got that swim done, and it's a little up the hill to the finish line, still enough to get pinched at the end or get sniped by another team that's got some fresh legs that wants to get spicy and sprint it off with you at the end. Yeah, we made sure that wasn't going to happen. And then we were like, hey, I think we might be in first place here.
Yeah. And honestly, it wasn't until Christine, super volunteer, you can go back and check out that episode with her, Christine Shipke, where she showed us the thing. It's like, yeah, you guys are first team to cross. It was like, all right, okay, we did it. There was one thing we did earlier on that last run too. There were a couple solo, I think there were sprint people that were ahead of us. I put in a little bit of a burst, and you're like, oh man, it's like, oh, now you've got it. I'm like, yeah, dude, I've got it when there's like 300 yards left. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
But I put in a little burst because I wanted them to have their finish line experience. I wanted it to be like sort of, and it kind of narrows in. So I didn't want to be bottlenecked or anything like that. So we're like, let's just get in front of these guys so they can have their finish line to themselves, essentially. And that's stuff we've done before where, years ago, we backed it off so that someone could get their finish line moment. And then we came in after them. So it's just kind of like, trying to do the right thing. Even if you're racing, it doesn't mean you need to be sort of like unkind kind of thing. But yeah, finish was good enough we finished in 3 hours, 4 minutes and 7 seconds, which is good enough for first place team and obviously first place men's team. I think we were 6th or 7th finisher overall if you include the solo folks. But yeah, it was surprising to us. Never done the champagne kind of toast thing.
That was fun.
And the one thing that I've certainly, this has been the case in our DMs, and we posted something on Instagram, like all the love. Like it really seemed like people were really happy for us that we won.
It was
that, again, it's like unexpected, but like the real blessing of it was just like, oh man, like people were really like rooting for us. And it's like, again, we're not presupposing anyone caring anything about us. So the fact that people do, it was just a really nice thing. So thank you to everyone that's reached out and give us kudos and sent us emails and whatnot.
Absolutely. I'll just plus that for sure. I mean, certainly. Yeah. I mean, again, we didn't show up at this race like, yeah, we're going to win it. We didn't even think that until kind of the last run there, but all the love that everyone's been giving. I mean, it was, everyone seemed really happy that, and as I think, Will Ramsey checked in, I raced with him in Catalina. So he's always like, their support. He's like, hey, yeah, nice job. I'm like, hey, someone's got to win the race. I guess it was just us today.
When the Dirksons aren't there, it can happen.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it was awesome. Obviously an experience. And I think just a bow on the top of an amazing Swimrun season for us, our most unique year. And we have our fireside chat here in like a month that we'll get to and kind of do a big retrospective on everything. But by far the most dynamic and unique Swimrun season for Chipper and for Chris and for the Low Tide boys. And just what a great finish. And it really was like all up and to the right. All of our experiences this year are like race execution, fueling, gear selection, how we raced, communication. It just like kept building and building on each other to this point. And, finishing off with the win is, I mean, obviously there's not much better way to wrap up the year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think speaking for me personally, I was pretty banged up earlier in the year to think I didn't even know I was going to do any swim runs. I mean, I was in Catalina and had to pull out like a week before, which was, painful in many ways, to leave Chipper hanging like that. And obviously everything worked out and he was super understanding, but, it was like, hey, this was going to be our big, redemption. But to think that, yeah, to your point, Chipper, to have the story arc the way it was and finish on such a high note, I think it's a testament. And again, I feel like this year, maybe it's because we've been racing with other people. Again, we'll spend more time kind of like try to get to the bottom of this. I think this has probably been our biggest improvement in terms of racecraft that we've had, where I think, we're good racers. We definitely know what we do. We know how to swim run. But I think in terms of adapting and communicating and iterating, you really culminated in this race where I felt like every decision was the right one. Every communication was good. We were obviously, we're best friends. We're obviously super kind to each other and taking care of each other. And all of that, we're still nothing's changed since Sunday. So in that respect, it's been just a lovely swim run season. I'm glad it's over. It's interesting when it's your last race of the year, and I was just like, I'm really enjoying this, and I really want it to be over. So I'm kind of in sort of the post-season bliss. We'll get back to work soon enough. While I'm going to be supporting Chipper. Chipper has some super long run on Sunday. I'm going to ride the bike and just do like a Rocky Balboa kind of situation with him. Like make sure he's hydrated or whatever, just to be supportive. But yeah, I think we should probably get into final thoughts. Ötillö, once again, put out an awesome race. Lars, everyone that was out there, obviously, once again, Lois and Mark are just like gems of human beings. And it was amazing, so great to see them as ever. All the racers, everyone put their best foot forward. And, whether you came in first or came in last, respect. You did a swim run. Hopefully you do more. We spent the whole weekend really pushing people to support your local races. If you already got the bug, we spoke with couple dudes after who were from Venezuela, who I think I completely shocked them by busting out my twangy Spanish. Puerto Rican Spanish on them. They're like, what? Anyway, I convinced them to sign up for Bellingham and Orcas, so it's like, we really want to grow this thing. And, nothing buoys me more for swim run season 2026 than finishing the season at Austin once again for the 6th year in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have much to add on that. But again, as always, thanks for all the support and the cheers. And hey, you guys got new intro music and everyone figuring it out. It also sounds like people are watching on YouTube. So if you're not on YouTube yet, be sure to subscribe to check out all the videos there. But we'll continue, all the love that we get is like all the currency that we really need to keep it going. So, really appreciate that. If you're just giving a high five or saying, hey, I got my pull buoy set up because of you guys and it worked out great. Like that's more than enough. All to the people that are signing up for the Patreon and everyone in between and everyone outside of that. Just a real big thanks from Chris and I. And on to the next one.
Yeah, more content coming up. We got gear reviews. We have more interviews. We have our sort of December shows, and then we're going to have a real banger of a show to kick off the year. So stay tuned for all that.
Yes, like, subscribe, smash that bell, all the things that you do on YouTube. And we'll see you out there. Hey, let me get a sip of that.
We pour it over Chris's head.
Yeah.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swim run resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run.
And then a swim.
Then another run.
Then another swim.
Then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
of course, yes.